I'm from the Philadelphia area, and I never knew that part of history. We talk about how history is part of our DNA and how it brings us together. It's where my paths first crossed with our next speaker, Congressman Burgess Owens. And I learned this from Dr. Woodson's last visit. We were neighbors, at least in our communities. America's first historical black college and university was Cheney. That's a few miles from my house. I never knew that. And so I'm getting educated here and here. And there is spots open on the Board of Education for either of you if you want to educate the rest of the state. And let me just introduce Congressman Burgess Owens. And I've known him for some time now, and he has many titles. He is a father. He is a best-selling author. He is also a National Football League Super Bowl champion. Not with the Philadelphia Eagles, but we can't always get what we want. But he's also the chair of the House Subcommittee on Education and Workforce. And so another passionate believer in the power of education. And with that, Congressman.
I can probably say with confidence that you probably rooted against us when we were playing the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. First of all, let me just say this, and I'm going to introduce Bob. I can't wait for you guys to hear from him. But it was a beautiful prayer, by the way. It really says it all. Utah is a very special place. And for someone who's only been in Utah for 10 years, I'm so proud to be here, to have my 6 kids and 17 grandchildren here, because we have very unique cultural friends. There's no one that serves what we do. There's no one that kind of looks outside the box, see how can we embrace others. I see my friend Darlene's here. We probably don't agree on very much, but we do want our communities, our state, our country to grow. We agree on that. So therefore it gives us a chance to talk about it and joke about a lot of different things. That's who we are as Utahns. So be proud of that. Just know it's not an accident that you guys are here. You're here because God placed you here to make a difference, and we're going to do that as a state. And I look forward to that. I had a chance to meet Bob a few years ago and had a chance to really get a lot closer because of my good friend Al Jackson. They're very close, so I had a chance to kind of have him come to the office and we talked about a few things. I'm gonna spend, I have 3 pages of intro, I'm gonna spend 2 of them. Because I need to make sure that part of this is my personal introduction to who this person is. I truly see him as a national treasure, just as I saw my dad's generation. Unbelievable, tenacious, proud, good people. And I'm glad that Bob reminds us of really what our race is doing. So here we go, we're going to introduce here Robert Woodson Jr., a senior, is founder and president of the Woodson Center, 1776 Unites, and Voices of Black Mothers Unite. He's an influential leader in issues of poverty alleviation and empowering disadvantaged communities to become agents of their own uplift. Bob is a frequent advisor to state, local, and federal government officials, as well as business and philanthropic organizations. His social activism dates back to the 1960s, when as a young civil rights activist, he developed and coordinated national and local community revitalization programs. During the 1970s, he directed the National Urban League's Administration of Justice Division, later served as a resident fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. You've seen him all over the news. C-SPAN, Meet the Press, Mark Levin. I mean, you turn on anything that's happening that's impacting our communities, our collaboration of people, you're gonna see Bob is at the very center of that. Contributor editor to The Hill, Washington Examiner, Wall Street Journal, and published in influential newspapers such as the Forbes, National Review. I can go on and on. Let me just say this about my friend. There was something that Karl Marx said many back in the 1800s. The first battleground in the writing of history. It is so important for us as a people to know within our DNA that we truly are a people looking to become our better selves. That's how we've always been. And so it's important for the history told, and Bob has done a really good job of not only living it, but sharing it and passionately building on that past. it's been interesting to see, again, Bob, the courage he has, the ability to share. And here's the thing that I kind of look at. I'm a representative. I think really what the hard lifting is what you guys do, what Bob has done for all these years. You're out there rolling up your sleeves. You're working heart to heart, hand to hand, getting people's hope, individuals' hope. And that's really what it comes down to. So I'm just proud to call him my friend. I'm thankful for you guys being here to make sure you can hear from him. And Bob, please join us and share your thoughts. Look forward to it.
I want to really thank Jamie and Al for really making this possible and bringing me to you. Excuse me. I'm going to be showing you a brief video that takes you around the country to really define what we do. There's a prayer that I utter each time that I commend to you. God, give me the strength to tell and pursue the truth, especially when it's inconvenient to me. George Bernard Shaw asked the question, must a Christ die in torment in every age to save those that lack imagination? And Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge. Because if you keep doing what you do, my graduate said, if you keep doing what you do, you keep getting what you got. So if you want to go someplace you haven't been, you got to do something you haven't done. And so I have decided in my career that it is important to the measure of the character of any nation or anything is how do we treat the least of God's children? And what I find, let me take some water here, please. What I found most troubling as we look around the country is that we have really, we're sending the wrong message to people who are in need of these communities. None of us should be defined by external problems. When you heard Harriet Tubman, well, and the reason she had that gun was not for slave chasers. It was the blacks who were unconvinced that they didn't believe they were slaves. If I'm right, they weren't convinced that they were slaves, and she was afraid that they would inform and tell on her. And so what has happened is that one of my favorite characters from history is Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass said that the worst time on the plantation was at Christmas, because it was at that point that the slave master would give the slaves off for 6 days between Christmas and New Year's. But the slave master wanted the slave to define freedom as getting drunk and being irresponsible. So he gave free rum to the slaves. And even the slave masters, they had contests as to which slave could outdrink the others. And some succumbed to this temptation because it was their slave masters thought that if they would drink enough and get sick enough over the course of 6 days, they would gladly come back on the plantation and submit to the slavery of a man than submit to the slavery of alcohol. So Frederick Douglass said some succumbed to that, but others used that time to go visit family. Others use that time to work and earn money so they can purchase their freedom. It's the same external circumstance, but what makes the difference is not the circumstance, is what choice you make in the presence of that circumstance. And too often what I'm hearing today, that people are making decisions for poor people and black folks and saying to them that you are defined by the worst of what you experienced in your past. And therefore, unless the slave master grants you freedom, you can never be free. It's the same message that we're sending to young people today, to say, oh, you live in a country that's racist, and they are opposed to you, there are institutional racist barriers to you. If you're shooting and killing each other, it's not your fault. If you're having babies out of wedlock, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Nothing is more lethal than telling people that they have a good exemption from a good excuse for failure. That's like giving them rum and telling them that's what freedom is. What we must do and what we do at the Woodson Center is that we go into low-income communities and we don't look at them as poor victims of oppressive systems. We look for ways to encourage them because people are motivated to change and improve themselves when you give them victories that are possible, not constantly reminding them about forces that oppress them. And so what we have done around the country, and then you'll see whenever this video is that we seek excellence among the people there and we look for innovation. But it is one of the cruelest things in the world, and we have people making some generous livings off of telling people you can't make it. I did, but you can.
Come on, come on. Well,
And so part of what I want to share with you through my videos is we go around low-income communities and we say that you must be agents of your own uplift.
yes, yes.
You must be your own Harriet Tubman. And there were 2 black slave chasers that tried to kill Harriet Tubman and return her to slavery. And there were 2 white people who helped her. If they didn't, she wouldn't be alive today. So we cannot look at life and history through a racial prism that all white people in the past were bad and all blacks are good.
Yes.
And so it is most important for us to make that. But again, the goal of what the Woodson Center is we have 3,500 grassroots leaders in 39 states. They're black, they're brown, they're white. And when they come together, they don't, in all these years, we haven't had any racial tension between blacks and whites and Hispanics. Why? Because if you are broken, all you want to know is how to overcome brokenness.
Yes.
You are not a white junkie, a brown junkie, or black junkie. You're just a junkie.
Yes.
And you need to be delivered. But deliverance doesn't come from outside. Deliverance comes from within you. So what we do at the Woodson Center is that we summon that there and we try to get resources to people in these communities so you can be agents of your own uplift and promote your own salvation. But it truly does begin with a fundamental understanding that we have one rule, and I want to lay it on you. Do not ask me any questions or state any problem unless you have a solution. We don't let anybody take up time at our conferences, Malamari, all the problem is this, you don't understand. This is the oppression we've suffered. Yeah, okay, tell me now, what's your solution? Successful at the Woodson Center in terms of is for us. We want to know, I don't want to know how many people, I want to know who has been changed. How have you become redeemed? And share your redemption process with someone else. And so what I want to show you is some examples of people who have overcome tremendous odds to achieve. We need to say a moratorium on whining and complaining about people outside of the things. And just get up off your butt and help yourself. One of the people accompanying me is Greg Snyder. Greg is a retired executive with Household Finance, and then HSBC Bank brought them out. And he was at a banquet, and I was his guest the first time I met him. And this guy was making a presentation on how rotten America is and how the corporations are the worst thing in the world. Then he said, I want to thank HSBC for this dinner. So I said to Greg, I had 2 glasses of wine. I said, Greg, Do you pay money to get your behind whipped like this? Why are you funding people who are doing nothing but cussing you out? I said, let me show you another way. And I took him by the hand into communities where he met people in there who were helping themselves. And they invested $7 million. We went into a rural area and in the urban centers. He saw people helping themselves in dramatic ways. And you're going to see some on here. And so, and one of those people that he saw is Will Crosby. Will has a powerful witness because he is the CEO of the Pinewood School, a 115-year-old black boarding school in Mississippi that only takes kids from the worst backgrounds, the most troubled communities, and saves them. 96% of them go on to college. They would be dead if they were not at Pinewood. So I'm hoping that what I'm going to share with you, that I have three goals. One is to inspire, to inform, but above all else, to challenge you. And you need to challenge other people. Don't let people waste your time telling you how bad situations are unless they got something to offer that tells you this is how the problem can be solved.
Yes.
This is a model for it. My daughter is here. She can tell you we've had ex-gang members living in our house, sleeping in a bedroom right next to her because I would trust them before I trust somebody with a Harvard degree. So. One thing about grassroots folks, man, they are honest and they are trustworthy. And once you earn their trust, you have a friend for life.
Yes.
I told people if suddenly a tyranny reigned on this country and I had a choice of being in prison with them and being free with others, I'd rather be in prison with my Joseph grassroots leaders. They are the salvation of this country. It's not going to come from think tanks. It's not going to come from the university. It's going to come from the testimony of people living there. There's quite a difference between a testimony and a resume. See, Goliath had the resume, but David has the testimony. See, Pharaoh had the reputation, but who? Moses had the testimony. Caesar had the reputation, but Jesus had the testimony. And so it's people with testimonies will always prevail over a reputation. And that's why I say people trying to be critical, and I said, listen, fact-based truth, we must stay with it, otherwise lies become normal. So it is important. But right now, I'm not supposed to be talking this long. Got everybody around here, but let me show you just a snippet of who we represent and how they do what they do. And then I'd like to take questions from you and our team. Sorry about that, Ron. Turn it up.
It's a spiritual freefall that is consuming our children. We must come together and look beyond race and realize America is drowning because it's in the moral and spiritual freefall. None of us should be defined by the worst of what we were in the past, but we should be defined by what we want to become in the future. And that people are motivated to change when you give them a vision of victories that are possible, not constantly reminding them of injuries to be avoided.
My name is John Carter. I'm the founder and CEO of Hope for Prisoners, and our organization works with men, women, and young adults that are exiting different arenas of our judicial system. It gave me confidence, man. It made me smile. Like, I came from a miserable place. You know what I mean? I came not knowing how I was going to deal with society or community. I can tell people to this day, with no exaggeration, the Hope for Prisoners would not be what it is today. We would not have been able to impact the many lives of the people that we've had the great privilege to serve and their families had it not been for Bob Woodson and the Woodson Center. And I gotta tell you, from the very first day that I ever got connected with Bob Woodson, it wasn't like we just met 5 minutes ago, right? Bob has this demeanor with everyone like you've known him for a lifetime. And from that time, Bob Woodson had become not only a dear friend, but a mentor. He began sharing with me a lot of the Woodson Center principles, right? That helped me to lay the foundation of what Hope for Prisoners is today. So not only has he helped me in my business and this nonprofit that I do, but there was many principles that he shared with me to help me lay down the foundation. So not only has the Woodson Center poured in those principles, but the Woodson Center has always stepped up with financial support. If there was a need that something that we needed or a direction that we wanted to go, the Woodson Center has always come along with that, with that financial support. So there's many things that Hope for Prisoners has coming down the pipe. We can be looking towards the Woodson Center for guidance and direction. Not only is there an opportunity for us to be able to scale and expand our model into different jurisdictions across the country, but there's an opportunity for us to expand and scale right here in the state of Nevada.
Since partnering with the Woodson Center, we were fortunate enough to have received funding, and this gift from them definitely took us to the next level. I Am Culture started off back in 2017 with only 4 students, and that was self-funded by me at that time. And so over the years, we've had more young people come in, our cohort has gotten bigger. We have partnerships with schools, which has definitely helped us with funding, but we still have a group of young people suffering from suicidal ideation, dealing with parents that are incarcerated or domestic violence that make their way to us independently through their parents. And so through that donation, this year for the very first time, we had 63 students in programs. So from 4 students to 63 students in a matter of 5 years, and having received that donation, that grant, to be able to not have to turn a young person away, and what they are doing as far as not just providing grants, to say, here's the funding and, go do what you do, but also to be able to better support us and shape us as leaders, as community servants.
Ever since we landed in Ghana, it's been very welcoming. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. But one experience that I love, completely loved, out of the 50 million activities that we've done, going to school and giving. Because we got to dance with the kids from the school and they didn't have much, but they really made me think about what life is like back home.
We were in a basketball game with a team in Ghana, and one of our teammates who showed us a tour around the city we were in a basketball game with a team in Ghana, and one of our teammates who showed us a tour around the city on the trip, his shoes fell apart.
And then he didn't even hesitate to give his sneakers to the student that sneaker fell off.
And it kind of opened up all our eyes all at once. I felt like how much we can give, how much we can support.
And that has been truly beneficial for me, from the development fund to HR to tax incentives, and having the Woodson Center set up the opportunity and having professionals come in and meet with us for the hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours even sometimes, to let us be in the classroom and to really learn how we can better support our work. It's really just so super beneficial. It's like a one-stop shop at the Woodson Center, so I am truly grateful for them. I am Carmia Berry, founder of I Am Cultured, and I am the Joseph Fund.
My name is John Ponder, founder and CEO of Hope for Prisoners, and I am the Joseph Fund.
If you say you stand for certain values of this nation, then we should prove it by investing in those institutions that reflect those values.
Yes. Thank you. But there's one young lady that I wanted you to meet in the video, Camille Bradley. Her mother had 3 children by 3 different men. And she was homeless and moved 9 times in high school. But she stayed close to this one high school because it had a Christian mentor who stayed with her. One day the program took her on a helicopter ride over Denver. She got so turned on with flying that she was the first member of her family to graduate high school in aeronautics and went on to college to graduate in honors in aeronautics. And Camille is now a licensed pilot with one of the major airlines. And even with this start. And also you saw John Ponder, he was in and out of jail from the time he was 14. He was slated to serve 30 years in prison, and Christ came to him in the prison, and the judge gave him 7 years. And but when John, he was counseled by mentored by the federal agent who arrested him, the U.S. attorney who prosecuted him, and the judge who sentenced him. And so John used those relationships with the police. So 40% of of his mentors to ex-offenders are cops who locked them up. The graduation ceremony that you saw is at police headquarters. And everybody graduates into the program. And John, we want to take this throughout the country because 96% of the people who go through John's program don't recidivate. And so the Woodson Center is just preoccupied with solutions, solutions, solutions. Let me take whatever questions you may have now for me or my team members. Yes?
Okay. So my question is this. You said that a lot of Josephs don't get mentioned because, well, I'll say we're quiet. We generally are, we just say yes and go out and do what we need to do. But how do we then change the narrative? Because I feel like in Utah, having been here for 3 years, that a lot of legislation is listening to the wrong people, the wrong voices, the wrong message, and those messages are going, they're going out to our schools instead of messages of hope and the fact that all people have potential. So what do we do as the quiet people? Because I feel like for many of us, we're nullified. We have the wrong political alignment, or where people of faith or whatever else, we're nullified. How do we overcome that to actually do the work that these people are doing?
This is why it's important, I think, to recruit pharaohs. We recruit people who come to us and say, what can I do? You can lend your reputation. We say to universities, you can come down and study us, only study the stuff that we do that's right, not tell us what's doing that's wrong. And so that's what mutual validation, when Greg came along, his company was funding all kinds of crazy stuff, but the very fact, when we started funding our groups, we got that company a lot of publicity. So it's a matter, and that's why I'm here to try to address that problem, to say to high net worth individuals in Utah who write checks to losing political campaigns, that perhaps you can ask some of your donors to your campaigns to commit resources to the groups you serve. Rick Riordan, who's one of the first Republicans to get elected mayor of Los Angeles, you know how he did it in 35 years? He took his friends into the low-income Hispanic community and for 2 years asked the people there what they wanted. And they said, well, we're operating after-school programs out of these little shacks. So he recruited his friends and they built a state-of-the-art learning center in the middle of East LA. And when he ran for office, all of them supported him. So if they plant charitably, you can harvest politically, but you don't harvest and plant in the same year. And I'm not making a political statement because you can go to low-income neighborhoods, you don't know which political party is in power. The consequences are the same for poor people. Yes. But all I'm saying is that we should offer our remedies up, but the reason that the center is here is to say to your state representatives, Senate, and also the foundations and to the universities. All of you need to reorient your giving and support for these grassroots Joseph, because they are the real patriots. They are the ones who are going to help save this nation that's in a moral and spiritual freefall. Also, it's important, we have a group called Voices of Black Mothers United. These are thousands of moms who lost their kids to homicide. We took out a full-page ad supporting the police. We're the ones who are losing our babies, not these clowns on television talking about defund the police.
Come on, come on, come on.
So the people who are advocating some of this crazy stuff don't have to live with the consequence of what they advocate. And they need to be called out. So that's how you build bridges with people. I'm hoping that the members of the Senate will have field hearings where they come into your community and let people share with them what their solutions are. That's a form of validation. So we must learn to validate one another and to move in another direction. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I actually, the first question I have is, how do you start to begin the conversations for
I
solutions?
can't hear you.
Yeah. Can you stand up,
So how do
please?
you start the conversations for solutions?
Start.
the conversations for solutions.
Huh?
How do you start the conversations for solutions?
Well, first of all, you started by starting it. I mean, you know, what is happening now, everybody is so afraid to have differences with people.
Come on now.
That I may say something, you're gonna think I'm racist. Stop all that foolishness. You know, we really need to be able to disagree.
Yes.
Without being disagreeable. Also, I tell people we need to assume if people are making bad decisions or in terms of this, that maybe they're not ill-intended, they're just ill-informed. But don't treat someone who may not understand what you're doing as if they are hostile to you. First, educate them as to what you're doing, but you gotta have the courage to speak the truth.
Yes.
Even when it's inconvenient to you. You need to get more civil courage. I say to my young gang members that, well, what happened? He says, well, so-and-so disrespected me. Well, what did he say about you? He said this. Well, is it true? He said, no, so why are you pissed? If I say to you wearing a red suit and you got a black suit on, why are you gonna get mad? You're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. And so I think we gotta have some honest dialogue. We ought to set the rules down that nothing is off limits. Let's establish when you start meetings and all, nothing is off limits. Let me say something that is dumb and insensitive without you thinking there's something that I have these deeper motivations for. Let's keep it light. And so that's what we just have to get a group of people to decide to do that. Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so my question to you is actually, I know one of your people, Dominique, she works for the Robert Woodson Center. I know her pretty well, me and her good friends. So I know you're working really good. Thank you so much for coming. How do you get, because my affiliations never stopped me from doing the work. I've done the work, and I continue to because I love people and I love my people. How do you get people to put down their swords enough and bury their swords enough to settle on the truth? Because the reality is education has become such a battlefield, Mr. Woodson, that the truth has now become something that people are afraid to settle on or at times can't settle on because of either differences or because of the fact that when the truth comes, they rather hold their sword. So how do you get people to bury their swords to agree on the truth so we can educate our kids the best? Because regardless of sides and dialogue that I've had, that is the consistent thing that comes out is I just want people to learn the facts. So how do we get there, Mr. Woodson?
Well, one of the strategies that I have when I was going at it with somebody that I normally agree with, and we were at a stalemate almost. So what I said to him, let's look at somebody we both love and want to help, this person. is what you propose or what I think was good or bad for him. And let me tell you, it stops people in their track when you take a third party or group and say, let's examine what my position is, and let's talk about what impact would that have. You see, experience will always trump an argument. And a witness is more powerful than an advocate. So people want to know, well, Bob Woodson, you talking all this smack. Is this true? I said, go ask these 10 guys who were gangbanging last year, going in and out of jail, spending money on lawyers, who are now clean and living responsible lives. Show me your 10.
Right.
And I'll stop doing what I'm doing and come join you. So you should challenge people not on their argument. You can argue with me all day, but you can't argue with my work. Will doesn't have to convince anybody that Pineywood is what it is. You just have to go look at the graduates. One of his graduates from the worst situation in Chicago now starting Harvard Medical School. So you go and get people who can offer testimony to your approach. Kids who've been through your program who are now successful. Let them come back and give testimony. So you need to stand behind the testimony of people who embody the values you stand for. Does that make any sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Rather than you arguing and say, this is a product of what I do. I use this example all the time. When the servants of John the Baptist came to Jesus and said, are you the one, or should we look for another? He didn't say, wasn't I born on Christmas? Didn't the Spirit of the Lord come in? No. Jesus healed in their presence. I said, go tell him what you saw. And that's what we must do. What we do at the center, that's when they say us come by, I just say, let me show you the fruit. One of my funders came and said, well, Bob, why would some man give up a lucrative drug trade for a minimum wage job? So I took him down into Southeast Washington Saturday morning to Curtis. I said, Curtis, this man has a question. He said, I'll bring 4 brothers in who can answer that. He said, yeah, okay. Why would you? He said, well, when I was dealing, I was being robbed by my customers and by my supplier. I had to call my woman to make sure no one's outside waiting to assassinate me. When I went to jail, I had to sell my car so I could pay my lawyer. And people were fearful of me, not respecting me. Now, he said, I make chump change, but I got an ATM card and people love me. So I asked him, I said, you think poor people make, and I said, you are a lawyer. If you could make 5 times the amount of money setting up a law practice in Iran, would you do it? He said, no, why? Because it's too dangerous. Well, what makes you think poor people don't make those same judgments? And once you give them an opportunity to know what the reality is. And so this is, you know, common sense on steroids. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So you talk about how America has a birth defect, racism. What could we do at home, tools to use to bring out that racism here in Utah?
Racism, we are not the same, you know, we are not the same country we used to be even 50 years ago. You know, there's a story about a farmer who comes to a stream with his mule to take in the market. And the stream is moving along at 3 feet at 20 miles an hour. And he forces the mule in and both of them get swept a mile down the stream because the next year he comes to the same crossing, the same mule. This time the stream is only 6 inches. The mule doesn't go in because the mule's got a good memory but poor judgment. Many of us have had situations. Look, I suffered under, I am 86 years old. I know what racism is because I was stationed in Mississippi in 1955 and 56, and then Florida. I know what it is. I got locked up twice. For 7 years after I got out, every time I saw a police light in back of me, my heart palpitated. 7 years it took me to get over that. So I know what that stuff is like. But I also knew there were white folks who helped me and black folks who didn't. Okay, so racism isn't what it is. If white people went to Canada and Europe tomorrow, tell me what problem it will solve on these streets. Tell me one problem it will solve. I grew up at a time in 1937. I could walk in my 98% of the households had a man and woman raising children. Elderly people could walk safely without fear of being assaulted by their grandchildren. I never heard of a baby being shot to death in a crib. 50 of them were shot last year. Now don't tell me that somehow racism is responsible for that. No, that's evil. Let me give you an alternative agenda than dealing with race. And that is America is in a moral and spiritual freefall that is consuming our children. The leading cause of death in urban centers is homicide. The leading cause of death in Appalachia among low-income whites is prescription drugs. It was so bad in East Cleveland that they had to have refrigerator trucks out there because they couldn't even process the bodies. The leading cause of death among teenagers in Silicon Valley, where the median income is $198,000, where every household has 2 parents, is 6 times the national average. Parents wear those little yellow jackets standing at a railroad crossing because so many kids are jumping in front of trains. Well, what we did at the Woodson Center is brought those mothers from those 3 groups together for a 3-day retreat to talk about how can we come together as a nation and fill that emptiness in the hearts and souls of our children to the point where they devalue their life, to the point where they either want to take someone else's or take their own. They're different sides of the same coin. But we're not going to be able to address that crisis if we have to look at each other through the prism of race.
Come on.
That's what's interfering with it. But we need to move beyond it.
Dr. Woodson, maybe just one more question? Someone's got it. There.
Okay, sorry, I was waiting for a microphone, but then I just realized. So what message do you have? Can you stand up, please? Yes. What message do you have? You talked a lot about truth and numbers and fact-based knowledge. That's what I heard. What message do you have for those that work? I'm thinking of a law specifically in Texas where construction workers, they work, they build communities, they do hard labor, and there's policy in place that wants to prohibit them from taking water breaks. So what message do you have for those folk who work, who want to be integrated into these societies, but thank you. I'll start over. My question was, what message do you have for those folk who work, who want to be integrated into societies and they're still facing barriers? I'm thinking of one example in the state of Texas where construction workers who build communities, who build our homes for our children and our schools, right? They are being, there wants to be a policy in place where they cannot take water breaks throughout their shift, which is super dangerous, right? Texas is a very hot state, and they're outside and they're building our communities and our schools and keeping our children in these buildings. So what message do you have for those folks who work and put the work in to advance and be integrated into societies but are faced with barriers in policy that fail to acknowledge that these are lived experiences?
Policy, what are some things you can solution?
policy barriers, and she was an example about construction workers who being permitted not to wear water and race.
The current policy barriers that people face is a big problem. And there are too many regulations like that. It's the same with the mom that I gave the example of, who raised 5 children successfully and got off the welfare and went on and got an associate's degree, and 5 kids went to college, but she couldn't get certified to open a daycare center. But somebody who hates children with a master's degree can get certified. And so all these kind of workplace regulations that are in place, like if you're a hair braider, you got to go through and do a bunch of changes. That's why when I was meeting with the legislatures today, I said, what you need to do is come in and sit and listen to people like yourself and others and do what my staff does. We brought our people together and we wrote down all of the barriers that they faced. Wrote them down. That's how. And then once we wrote them down, we gathered the legislators together to say, this is a list of issues that are a concern to grassroots people. And how can you address them? So you need to, and that's why you can have field hearings that members of the Senate and House need to take some time, leave these nice offices, and come into the community and give people like you a chance to speak to them about what are those barriers that they face. Okay.
Thank you. Hello? Dr. Woodson broke it. Hello? You're getting a bill from the Utah legislature, I'm sure. I just want to say thank you, and I know it says they're gonna sing, but I want to turn the time over to Jamie Renda, the founder of Path Forward Utah, because every event I've been to that she has organized or hosted, she insists on music. And I am not a music person, but Jamie insists on it.
She gets her way.
And Jamie gets her way, yes. And maybe Dr. Woodson knows this or someone else, but I know someone once said you can't have a revolution without music, or every revolution requires a soundtrack. And I think part of that is Jamie's desire to bring us together through music, but I want to turn the time over to Jamie just to have her say some closing remarks and introduce the musical number, and then we'll take this message home and in our hearts and into our communities. So, Jamie.
Somebody was trying to tell me how to turn this mic on. Oh, there we go. So, Dr. Woodson, you're off the hook, the mic's working. I always want to call him Dr. Woodson because he probably should be, but it's Mr. Woodson. He doesn't have that Harvard degree. I don't have a musical talented bone in my body. I don't sing. I don't play any instruments, but I'm a big believer that music can heal things that other things can't. And so I do believe music is profoundly needed in our nation and in our communities and in our churches. That's what brings us together. So put this band together called the Freedom Project. Last year started, and I just wanted to take this time. All the people that are singing are part of Path Forward Utah. There's quite a few here tonight. But we put a band together, and the Clark family.
I just have.
Andrew, I don't mind. Can you stand up? No? Okay. Andrew and his children are extremely talented in music, and his wife Pam was extremely talented as well. And she passed away about 4 weeks ago, so this is kind of somewhat of a tribute to the Clark family for what they're going through, for their loss, and for Pam. And I And she's up in heaven, but she smiles down on us as we're coming together because she took a courageous step on being part of the band and performing in groups that maybe she had never really been in prior to that. So anyway, I'm just grateful for her and her courage and the courage of the Clark family. So anybody that's going to be part of singing today, we have everyone. This song is called Heal Our Land. If you catch on to the tune, you're welcome to join in. So if you want this microphone off, I know you're going to use it. And this is going to be kind of like our closing prayer of the night. This is a song prayer all together. It's not playing on our thing. Start it over. So sorry, guys. It wasn't there.
It's Bluetooth.
There we go. Sorry, guys.
That's all right. Ready?
In a world where we're losing hope and life has us on the ropes, misunderstanding, hate running rampant, every man out for his own. It seems like we've lost our way and the distance grows every day. Thought that we had it, caught in the madness, oh, ain't it tragic, but you said, if you turn from our wicked ways and humble ourselves and pray, you see your face, you give us grace, so come have your way, Lord. Here we are, abandoned hearts, abandoned knees, with outstretched arms, God, hear us from heaven, send us your presence, we need you, Lord, we need you, Lord. Summer and spring may pass, but winter and fall won't last. I can trust the Creator, perfect in nature, better is coming, I know. And just like the rising sun, our faith is rising up. You're the God of the promise, what you have started, you faithful to finish, you stay. If we turn from our wicked ways, humble ourselves and pray, and seek your face, you give us grace, so come have your way, Lord. Here we are, abandoned hearts, abandoned knees, with outstretched arms, God, hear us from heaven, send us your presence, we need you, Lord, we need you, Lord. Come and heal our land. Oh, Lord, come and heal our land. Oh, Lord, come and heal our land. Oh, Lord, come and heal our land. Come and heal our land. Oh, Lord, come and heal our land. Lord, come and heal our land. Lord, Lord, come and heal our land. Here we are, abandoned hearts, on bended knees with outstretched arms. God, hear us from heaven, send us your presence. We need you, Lord, we need you, Lord. Here we are, abandoned hearts, on bended knees with outstretched arms. God, hear us from heaven, send us your presence. We need you, Lord, we need you, Kingdom come, let your will be done, let your glory fall on your daughters and sons. God, hear us from heaven, send us your presence. We need you, Lord, we need you, Lord. We need you, Lord. Hallelujah, we need you.